is a spiritual deity. Freedom and liberty and justice shall fight for you. When you fight for freedom with all your soul, take it from me. This is Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, BCB, the voice of the nation, the voice of the rising sun.
Fellow Biafrans, this is Rosama, and this is the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, BCB. We bring you a special program today. It is an excerpt from BGIE's monthly conference on Biafra restoration. In this excerpt, the speaker walks us through the roadmap to achieving Biafra restoration by highlighting the history behind our problems with Nigeria through colonization and the creation of the unworkable nation of Nigeria, the Biafra-Nigeria War, and finally, addressing what we must do. Biafrans, listen carefully. There is work before us. There is a lot of work before us. There is also a lot of sacrifice that we must make. But we must persist and be vigilant. And so, are you ready? Are you committed? We also briefly address the security problems confronting us at home today towards the end of the program. However, we will return to this issue of security in our next program. As such, we will stop briefly here. Fellow Biafrans, please listen to our speaker. This is Rosama, and this is BCB.
I will not blame too much because at that particular time, the international law was still evolving. I'll go into that when I go to the full details. The rule of self-determination was still being, still in its infancy at the time Biafra was declared in 1967. The process of self-determination dates back many centuries. It's not something that is new. Netherlands, I think, was the first country that did its self-determination and got its independence from Spain in 1532. Many people do not know that Netherlands was at some point a colony of Spain. So Europe started colonizing each other before they started extending it to ourselves. So by the time Biafra was declared in 1967, the legal framework for becoming independent under international law was not yet matured. In fact, the International Convention for Civil and Political Rights became effective, or what we say in international, entered into force in 1976. Okay, and it was passed and as promulgated, use that word because I don't like to use it. It's a military word. It was passed into law in 1966. But the process of adherence, whereby countries will accept it as part of their law, and there is always a limit, a number of countries that will accept any particular rule before it enters into force. After that, it will apply to everybody. So it took 10 years from 1966 to 1976 before that law came into force. And that is where this right of self-determination became a legal right. Prior to that period, it was not a legal right, and that was why Ojukwu was shouting, "It is our right to self-determination," and they didn't pay heed to it. It could have been very good if the then Secretary General from Sweden was not mysteriously disappeared. He died in a plane crash because he was favorable to the agitation of Biafra. But once he died, the complot to make Biafra impossible or unachievable, took the center stage. So the right to self-determination is the right of people to determine its own destiny. Okay? Self-determination is a core principle of international law, but also recognized as a general principle of law. What is general principle of law? General principle of law is a law that is applicable, recognizable, okay, which everyone can recognize. If you see it everywhere, that law, if you look at all the laws in the country, you will see semblance of self-determination, both individual in the law of people. That is a general principle. It applies across the board all over the world. And it's enshrined in a number of international instruments. And according to several instruments that expand it under international, that right denotes the right of people to determine their political future freely. That word freely is very important as we go on, to pursue their economic, social, and cultural development. Okay? So what has happened is that in 1885, when some people decided that after slavery ended, Africa was becoming very important, the scramble for the partition of Africa began, and some people decided we have to arrogate this territory to ourselves. And they sat down in Berlin and decided to share us. Because if you do not understand, as we Igbo say, where the rain start beating you, and that was what I was trying to say, the agitation has missed a lot because people did not understand the international plane, and they were playing, being too emotional in the way we were reacting to events. So if we understand where the law stands and how international politics is played, because international law is politics between states, okay, that is elevated to international level, because it cannot be played at the domestic level. They put it in there. So it's all politics. So you have to understand this. And to become a state, a country, we use state because not like it's the internal states are so countries are called states under international law. To become a state, that gives you automatic right. The Montevideo Convention on the Rights and Duties of States, 1933, which is one of the oldest customary international law, stipulates what should constitute a state. So you have to understand what makes a state before you begin to say state. Because once you become a state, you become a powerful entity. The highest entity in the whole world is a state, a country. Okay, because many people, there's a difference between a state and a country. Okay, the state is with power. Recognized countries may just be operating like that. Nigeria, for example, is a country, it's not a state. Okay, but it's a member of the United Nations, and that gives it the right to be a state. But a state should be able to encompass equity and inclusiveness of all its members. And that is where I'm going to start to elucidate on what makes it impossible for us to get international support and what we should do in order to be able to, achieve our aspiration. Because if you do not understand these power puzzles and things like that, you will not be able to do anything. So what happened in 1885 is important. By the time they used straight lines to draw a map of Africa and allocated each territories to themselves, they established a new order. And that new order was purely economic. It was not based to make you progress. It was competitive among themselves, Europeans, so that they will not fight. Because people do not understand that what led to the First World War was the way they shared Africa. Some people were not happy about it. Okay? Especially Germans. Germans were the first people who came into Africa. And now they are paying reparation to the people of Namibia, the Herero Sioux, where they practiced the first genocide. They were in Cameroon, they were in Togo, and so on. So by the time the scramble started, King Leopold was holding forth in Congo, owning everyone. So he became so rich that all the people, it ignited the struggle for scrambling of Africa. And then they have to sit down in Bismarck, called them in Germany, and they sat down to share Africa so that they will not fight. But it didn't end there. They have to fight, but they have to bring a reason why the war happened. So when that war ended and Germany, First World War from 1914 to 1919, Germany lost the war, and they took away all the countries they were ruling and called them mandate state and shared it among the victors, France, Great Britain, Holland, Portugal, Spain. So they shared these countries, and Germany was not happy again. So they went back to the drawing board and started drawing, and Hitler came, continued that, and then another world war happened. He told them, okay, you take Africa, we will now take you. Okay, so he went in to defeat Europe, and then he will colonize Africa eventually. So he said, you have taken Africa from us, so we will now take you. So he wanted to conquer his people, the Europeans, and then Africa will now, the whole world will be under his feet. So we understand, if we understand this, we will understand the predicament we face in trying to achieve what we are doing. So by the time the Second World War ended, which was obviously an economic war of dominance and exploitation, who will be positioned in a better place to dominate the world. Europe practically destroyed itself. So it could no longer sustain colonialism. There was no money. America, United States of America, that helped it to defeat Germany, the Nazi, had to do what they call Plan Marshall to resuscitate Europe, because then too America needed a market that he could continue to sell. So it was in a mutual interest, or in his own best interest, to help Europe. But then we say when someone is being carried at the back, you don't carry someone. So they have to shed off. So you got independence, not because you fought so hard, or because Nnamdi Azikiwe and Kwame Nkrumah was there. Yes, they tried. They were highlighting it. They were pushing it, but they relinquished it, gave up Africa because they could no longer sustain spending it. But what did they do? They quickly made a turnaround and established institutions to control Africa. In the Bretton Woods in the United States, where they sat in 1945, they established the United Nations and 3 other institutions, which is the World Bank, IMF, and the World Trade Organization. But World Trade Organization did not start. People refused it because today, World Trade Organization, WTO, which our sister heads, is the strongest organization in the whole world. But people don't know, because it's an instrument of globalization, an instrument of one government, and so they are going. But it went out of hand, due basically to what some people have called the advent of information technology. So it went out. So knowledge was liberalized, and through internet and the spread of internet and information technology, remove the power and monopoly of information from some people, and then China, India, the so-called BRIC nations who were wise enough to take advantage of it, took advantage, and now we are struggling to maintain the global order. So the principle of self-determination is prominently embodied in Article 1 of the Charter of the United Nations, and Article 1 common to the two international covenants of human rights, and that is where it became a right of all people. The human rights development over the years made it so. It is recognized in many other instruments and regional instruments, such as the Declaration of Principles of International Law concerning friendly relations. This one in particular was developed in 1970 after the Biafran War. I will come to that. So, however, the incorporation of these instruments and its prominence in international law discourse, its evolution and realization has been marked by controversy, prompted largely by the inability of the international community to clearly define its scope, contours, and more especially to agree on the definition of the term people. People. That is where the problem lies. And that is where the government, Biafran government in exile, should play an important role. For you to become a nation or a state under international law, you have to demonstrate. I started by elucidating how Nigeria was formed, given to this. They jammed the ethnic groups who were nations before. Benin Kingdom, the Yoruba Empire, Oyo Empire, which extended up to Dahomey, the Hausa, Kanuri, Kenem Boronu Empire. All these things they were distinct people, and then the Igbos, the Efik, the Ibibios, who had their distinct, they jammed us together and amalgamated us in 1914. I'm part of the Cameroon, and I will also come to that if I have time. The Bakassi issue, which was treated when Obasanjo was the head of government in Nigeria, and how they gave that away, because it was given away during Biafra to undermine Biafra. But Obasanjo did not do anything to protect, because he was the one actually who gave it away. So he encouraged them to go to court. He went to court with them. Previous government in Nigeria refused to go to court, because they know that if you go to court, there's a principle in international law that is called any agreement you reach, you must keep. Okay? So when you reach that agreement, when Nigeria reached that agreement, even though it was not the right of Obasanjo to reach the agreement of ceding part of the territory, it is only reserved to the head of state. He gave out that and signed so that Biafra will be blockaded from that place. At the end of the war, Ahmadu Ahijo, who was a Fulani also, who ruled Cameroon that time, came to claim it. Subsequent governments in Nigeria refused. Even Abacha fought them, and some other head of states, and then until Obasanjo came in. Why am I mentioning this? Because if you do not understand what made Biafra impossible, we may not be able to finally resolve the issue of how we will go forward to get the agitation and the restoration of Biafra in place. So the history is telling us that the entity called Nigeria was established for a purpose. If you have to dismantle it, you really have to understand where you have to face to be able to do it. You have to understand the enormous obstacles that is in place. It's purely economic, the Nigerian situation. They don't care for the human beings who are living inside there. It is only you that will understand what the law is saying under international law and see how you can use it to deal with that. And that is where the Biafran government in exile should focus to understand the law and appeal with that law. What Nnamdi Kanu have done in this is to use those principles that are available in the international law, sounding referendum. The United States was the first country that did what they call unilateral declaration of independence. So under international law, it is not allowed for a country, the international law do not recognize secession. So which means it is not allowed to, for any country to secede, to move away from the other, except it is agreed. For example, in 1965, Malaysia and Singapore, they were still in one country. They were one country, and suddenly the Malays were maltreating them anyhow. So what did they do? They started to form their own government like we're doing. But while they were doing so, the Malays decided to expel them. So their own was just free. They just told them, go away, we don't want you. And they went away and formed their own Singapore nation. Today is one of the most advanced nations in the whole world. But we got independent at the same time. Okay, so you have to understand that what the former colonial masters did was to institute the principle of divide and rule. And to be able to do that effectively, they have to jam different distinct people into different people who have nothing in common into, so that you begin to fight yourself. The centrifugal or forces, when you are fighting yourself, then they will be able to come in and be, exploiting what they are doing. They did the same thing in India. India, at the time it got independent, I think it constituted almost about 4 nations. Yeah. As it stands today, those 4 nations became independent. It didn't take them time to realize that they wouldn't be together. Pakistan quickly broke away from India, because it was the same exact thing they wanted to do. They did in Nigeria, they did in India. But these people quickly understood they can't work together, and they broke away with the tension that is going. They have to arm themselves, nuclear power, this and that, and so there's still tension there, but they have resolved to be peaceful nation, because one of the reasons why nations get the nuclear weapon is that it serves as a deterrent. Once you have a nuclear weapon, people fear you. Nobody will touch you anyhow. So most countries, and Iran is trying to do that. If you want to become economically powerful, if you want to live on your own and nobody worries you, you have to develop the power to deter people from coming to do you anything anyhow. And then Bangladesh in 1970 did the same thing, broke away from the India and declared their own independence. That was the first successful unilateral declaration of independence. The first one actually was in 1965 in Rhodesia, when Smith declared Rhodesia independent from Britain. But it didn't work because he was a British man trying to rule over Rhodesia, which constitutes Zambia and Zimbabwe today. So northern and southern Rhodesia. He declared it independent, but it didn't work because the world came against him, because he was also a foreigner. He didn't come from there, so he has not got that such right to declare that place. But yes, the people has did the same thing in Africa, and they continued with apartheid in South Africa. So historically, self-determination as a notion came into limelight following the advent of nation-states in Europe, where it was invoked to restructure the rules of the old empire, with emphasis on national origin. That is what Europeans did. They did their own self-determination on national origin. But they are trying to form us distinct people, different nations, as a people in Africa. So we have to resist that. Africans and Biafrans are the first people who became conscious of that. Actually, the first people were the Kabaka people in the Congo, where Patrice Lumumba head sway and they eliminated him. But that was basically not structured enough. It was basically induced from outside. The Belgians tried to do that, from outside. But the Biafran Declaration of Independence, like Chijike Nduku said, was a genius nation. It was unexpected. No, I wouldn't use the word unexpected, because your colonial masters and the Western world have known your ancestors right from the time of slavery. So they knew what you can do. That is why they actually formed Nigeria and put you inside there, in order to diminish your star, in order to make you not to achieve your full potentials in life. Because what they saw in Igbo land and the so-called eastern region that became Biafra was unrivaled in terms of human consciousness and worldview. What they saw, the organization they saw marveled them because they have not seen that. And many people do not know that the concept of stereotypes, which we call precedent, was taken from our area. Prior to that, Europe was purely feudal. But our ancestors established a system that worked for everyone, protected everyone. The rules were made. That is where UK had the common law they have today. They copied it from us. They didn't have it prior to that. The kings made law. The common law that existed at that time was Omenana. And in some areas, everybody have their own. And what disputes were settled, rules were set, but laws were made upon resolution of disputes. Once disputes are settled, the law is established, everybody will now be forwarded. They saw it and said, wow, which people are this? No king, no centralized organization, each community independent. And by the time United States was established in 1776, by the time they fought the British, they looked around the world to see where they can copy a system that is not like Europe. You remember those who formed the United States were basically those who escaped Europe, who were termed extremists because they did not want to submit to monarchy and all those things. They moved away, and the imposition of religion that was there, some of them went away, and they wanted to be different. They look away. Where did they find the government that is not based on one person? A complete democracy, participatory democracy, which was being run in Igbo land that time. It was not representative democracy, it was participatory. Each family is represented right from the Umunna to this. And they saw it and they said they copied it and then they modified it to make it. The problem was that the system run by our ancestors in that part of the world, stretching through to Cameroon, the southern Cameroon, that was part of the eastern region at that particular, that was the same system that englobed us. They saw a democracy that functioned for everyone. And they copied it and modified it and make it representative democracy because our ancestors did not emphasize on making money. Business, and they have made business with the slaves and then have learned how to make money with it. So they modified it to continue to make money out of it. So what am I saying in essence? If you understand the power that be and what is being at play, what is being played out, you will be able to understand how we can be able to resolve our problem. We can get independence. We can get out of our predicament, but we have to understand what is happening to us. What is happening to us? The people that establish you do not want you to show the world how they can be free. You have to show, if you want to be independent, you have to show you are not a Nigerian. For example, Nigerian people were created in 1914. To the world, we are all Nigerians. So if you are saying you want to get independent, I say, why? How? So many people do not understand that. But because we are behaving like Nigerians, we are doing everything like Nigerians, they do not see the difference why you should not resolve your issues there. So you have to, as Biafran government in exile, you have to start looking at a way to make yourself distinct, because that is what international. Once you are able to define yourself as different from the others, then you acquire the right to self-determination. This is what the court said there is two branches of self-determination. One is internal and one is external. One will come before the other. The internal one, self-determination, means they will give you autonomy, you will rule yourself, speak your language, do everything you have to do within the context of the state without discrimination and exclusion. So you achieve internal self-determination. So you will not have any right to external self-determination. The court in the Quebec case in 1975 was explicit on that. The Quebec people asked for independence, They wanted to break away. So then when the government of Canada said, no, you can't break away. And they went to court. It became a contentious issue. They went to court. And how did the court decide it? He said, these people, you are speaking French. You are speaking, you are behaving, you have been given all the freedom, everything, you run your government. So what else do you want? And they were defeated. So they couldn't do that. So the only alternative the court gave to them is you can run a referendum to ask the people, but that is when you politically achieve a government in that region and your program is to succeed. So you ask your people, do you want to stay the Canadians? And they said, yes, they will continue to be Canadian. But they say, no, you become independent. So that's why I think every 10 years now they run a referendum. That is the agreement they reach. As long as the government that wants independence wins the election as in control of the parliament, they can propose a referendum within a separate period of 10 years every year. So the Biafran government can aspire to this kind of arrangement if they want, establish a government, a political party in Nigeria to participate in that mumbo jumbo called a country, and then you know what will happen. Is that what you want to do? There is no, you have to be resolute, you have to resolve whether you want to become Nigerian or you want to become Biafran. If you really want to be Biafran, you have to start showing you are different from Nigeria. And that is where people will start taking us serious. The problem we have is that we have become even more Nigerian than Nigerians. We are scattered all over Nigeria. But because the people who are holding you understood the way to hold you down, they closed down, they were being advised, the things that made you stay at home. They lured you out of your territory so that you will not have the power of creation again. So we have to start telling our people, head home, invest. The Nnewi people are the people who did very well. At the end of the war, they realized that the war has not ended. So they focused their investment at home. They lost a lot. Chukwu's father lost practically everything they had. They were everywhere throughout Nigeria. They lost many things and they learned their lesson. But others didn't so much. We all rushed out to the rest of Nigeria. We are hungry. We don't blame them. They destroyed us, gave us 20 pounds to start a new life. So people were hungry and they went. But it is time the government in exile recognize these weak points that we have and start encouraging our people to go back home and build Igbo land. Make it attractive. Make it secure. So that the people will not see you as a distinct people. You have to show why you are different. You have to show your organization. If you are not showing it and you are behaving like Nigerians are doing the same thing Nigerians are doing, so why do you want independence from them? So people, the definition of people, it is only you that can define yourself. That is why there's no definition of people under international law. There is no definition of a people because it is you who will say, this is who I am. And once you say it, people will not accept you. If you are not able to define yourself and you are telling me you want to be independent, we have a very good case because one, Biafra has existed. There's a marked area. Thank God Ojukwu declared that territory in 1967. It gives us an advantage. Otherwise, everything will be reverting to 1914. Or beyond that, or prior to that. So we have a defined territory that existed, and that is why we should not be talking, give us independence. We should sit on the restoration of a stolen independence. Because the world knew they made a mistake in Biafra. But it is we that will have to continuously remind them that they made a mistake in Biafra. The right to self-determination have been existing before then. Why did they not come to the rescue of Biafrans who were claiming that right? And why did subsequent ones they are being recognized? Is it because Africans have to fight a war in order to get independence, and apparently that is what it is. There is no country today in Africa that has gotten independent without fighting a war. It is not coincidental. It is not accidental. It is planned. There is an organization I worked in, one of them, I will mention them, that monitors the sales and ammunition in the world. It is prepared by, let me use that word, prepared by the military industrial complex in the United States. And they have to sell their ammunition, and this is what gives them reach. So Biafrans demonstrated that they were able to, they can make their weapons, they can make their everything, like my friend Chichiki said earlier, refine their fuel. You marvel them, you surprise the world. But so how do you overcome this? This is where the Biafran government will be looking at.
Maybe you have 5 minutes to wrap up on what, and then.
Okay. The Kosovo people, the same thing that happened to Igbos happened to the Kosovo people. So what did they do? They declared their unilateral declaration of independence. That is the VIA. First, let me clarify. There is no way legally Biafra can get independent, because the International Court of Justice can only entertain cases between states, recognized states. We have no local standing in that court. It is only open to members of the United Nations. So as long as you are not a member of the United States, the court cannot entertain your case. The ICC, International Criminal Court, is a court for complementary to the judicial system of individual states. So we also do not have access to that court if you are not a state. State parties to that convention is called Rome Statute, signed it and made it sure that individuals can have access. Me, I can sue on behalf of genocide in Biafra and this and that, but a country that is not recognized will not have access to that state. So recognition is very important, and that is what we're looking at. Unilateral declaration of independence is another way, which is what Kosovo did in 2008, and which was confirmed in 2010 by the International Court of Justice, because Serbia asked for an advisory opinion through the United Nations. For the court, International Court is the judicial arm of the United Nations. So only World Health Organization, it is only assessed by states, except World Health Organization and Red Cross, which is has a special arrangement or status within the international system. So if you want to access that court, there's only one way Biafra can access International Court of Justice, through a friendly state, which is what Zambia is doing now for the people in Myanmar, the Rohingya people or whatever that has sued Burma or Myanmar. It has sued in the International Court of Justice for genocide. And Gambia is representing the people of Rohingya in that region of Burma or Myanmar, which is now in the Court of Justice. I think the judgment will be coming up very soon in the International Court of Justice. So if we can get Zambia, which recognize Biafra immediately, or Cote d'Ivoire, or possibly France, but you need to get a very favorable government that is anti-United Kingdom for an European country to do that. But if you can get any country, Portugal, not Spain, because Spain has its own problem, but Spain was sympathetic to Biafran cause during that period, and Portugal too. So if you can get any country that can take our case before the International Court of Justice, then it is possible. That is a legal via that we can use. Otherwise, unilateral declaration of independence, and possibly that will leak, which is what Ojukwu did, and it caused war. And if you do it again, it will cause war. What is left? You have to prepare for that eventuality. Because why we lost is that we didn't prepare for that eventuality. If you, in case you have war, what do you do? And that seems to be the only option. Unless you force a stagnation of Nigeria and everything crumbles, and force a kind of negotiation or disintegration of the country, like the Soviet Union dissolved, which is what Nnamdi Kanu through IPOB was trying to achieve. So that there will be an internal revolution that will dismember the country without war. Otherwise, all options are at the table. There's no legal channel for Biafra. What is left is diplomacy, opening the channel, but that means you have to understand international law, how it plays, who is important, or you move to unilateral declaration of independence. As it stands today, the world will only accept an African nation if you fight a war. That's how Eritrea got its independence. That's how South Sudan got its independence. And name any other country that has got its independence in Africa. You have to pay the price. And the price is that you have to buy weapons, kill yourselves, and then in the end, get into debt. So that these three institutions, IMF, World Bank, and WTO, will feast on you through their people, because they are the ones who invest in this organization. The whole thing is purely economic. If we find a way to wriggle out of this, then we'll be on our path for independence. Thank you very much for having me, and I will be open for questions. I have a very big dossier here, but I look at the time when we are talking, I say, no, it's not going to be possible. But if possible, I will send it across to you. And this thing, so
we will definitely need it, and then have a way of passing it, circulating it to the.
Yeah, but I didn't want to put anything in documentation because of my position in certain.
Okay, we understand that. We'll discuss back channel and then find a way on what you have told us the critical thing, and the prognosis is quite there, very, very there. But then, there is hope, because we can never be, hopeless. And I wanted us to go ahead quickly and take questions from our two speakers, but with the time not, really friendly on our side. And I love the patience of each and every one of us here, great stakeholders, people who have made their marks in this struggle. I want to crave your indulgence for us to now quickly, discuss the next topic, which is security, internal security in our land, and how we can go about it. And then immediately after that, which won't be long, because security issues are not issues we deliberate anyhow. So our elder is going to talk to us briefly on that, and then we take all the questions they are rearing up, here, and thank you. Elder Ifeatu.
Good evening once again. Before I begin, I want to say that I don't know how to express my heart. It breaks my heart that our people are being killed needlessly in Biafra land. People whom we call our brothers orchestrated the killing in Biafra land. And they're even glorifying the killing. So this is where the security is very essential. Security in itself is the protection and safety of life and property. Security is all encompassing. It's not like every other activities that we engage ourselves in. By the way, let me introduce myself.
Rising soul, rising soul. Biafra is the only hope of Africa. Biafra is the only hope of Africa. Believe it or leave it, Biafra is the only hope of Africa. We've been crying, the world claim not to hear. And we've been lamenting, the world claim not to hear. Our tears flow, the world claim not to see. And our blood flow, the world claim not to see. This is a crime, oh no, against humanity, oh no, yeah, this is a crime. Eritrea spoke up, they were given independence. South Sudan spoke, they were given independence. Namibia spoke up, they were given independence. Give me the reason my people got to be neglected. Give me the reason my people got to be rejected. Give me the reason our freedom got to be a crime. Give me the reason our own freedom got to be denied. Hey, Biafra is the only hope of Africa. I tell you what, Biafra is the only hope of Africa. Hey, Biafra is the only hope of Africa. Believe it or leave it. Oh no. Oh. That was physical battle, and we're betrayed by the people them trust. Today's heroes are fighting. This is a spiritual battle. Let us unite and give Biafra a meaning. If we don't take time, we can't remain in this slavery. No freedom of speech, no freedom of expression, no freedom of worship, no freedom of religion. Justice denied, oh no, of my own very people. Hey, justice denied, hey, on the rising sun. Hey, justice denied. Oh, my freedom fighter. Yeah. What is so bad? My people wanna be liberated. What is so bad? My people wanna be independent. What is so bad? My people wanna be alone. This is the time we will make it known to the world. Hey, Biafra is the only hope of Africa. Biafra only hope of Africa. Biafra is the only hope of Africa. I tell you what, Biafra is the only hope of Africa. Hospitality, positive, education, positive, economic, positive, hospitality. I tell you what, positive. Biafra is the only hope of Africa. Biafra is the only hope of Africans. I tell you what, Biafra is the only hope of Africa. Hey, Biafra is the only hope of Africa. My people will cry. Biafrans will cry. My people are suffering. Oh, Biafrans are crying.
Thank you for listening to us today. Join us next time for news, cultural, and educational programs. This is the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, BCB.
To be